We're here today to talk to you about New York as a maritime education center. One of the things that I think is a very important but yet not known fact is that New York is the site of the largest concentration of maritime-related academic institutions in the United States. In addition to the schools that you see represented here on the panel, we also have the Service Academy, Kings Point. We have two additional four-year institutions, Webb Institute and Stevens Institute. We have another maritime high school in New Jersey, the Mast School. And we've got Kingsborough Community College, which offers a two-year maritime program. So we have a concentration unmatched anywhere in the United States of students ready, willing, and able to walk out and enter the maritime industry, not only as ship operators, captains, but also on the logistics side, as well as working in the professional ranks. So we're here today to talk to you a little bit about it. I'll introduce my fellow panelists. We've got Murray Fisher, who's the founder of the New York Harbor School. I've got Twinkle Familiare, who's with the Urban Assembly School for Global Commerce, and Dr. Michael Alfultis, who's with SUNY Maritime. And I'd like to turn it over, Murray, if you could just say a couple of words about your school.
Sure. Well, first of all, what an honor to be here and to present with this panel, so thank you so much for the opportunity. As Robin said, I'm the founder of the New York Harbor School, and I now run the New York Harbor Foundation, which is a nonprofit that supports the Harbor School, and we also run a project called the Billion Oyster Project. The Harbor School is sort of just a big, quick overview of it. There are a lot of familiar faces in the room who have already heard this for the last 14 years, but there's some new faces as well. Harbor School is a public maritime high school that we started in 2003 in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Started with 125 students. Over the years, we developed what are called 6 career and technical education programs, which means Harbor School students graduate with a technical credential in one of 6 marine fields, and that's aquaculture, marine biology, ocean engineering, marine systems technology, professional diving, and vessel operations. All of those are accredited by the state and with post-secondary institutions and as well with industry, with the idea being that a Harbor School graduate can leave with college. Going to college is a real option, but also with the entry-level, the job skills for an entry-level job in one of those 6 marine fields. At the simplest, what Harbor School is trying to do is exactly what the Lieutenant Governor said today at lunch, is we want to excite young people in New York City to join this industry, and we want them to be trained and prepared, and it's not an easy industry to get into, and I can tell you, as having worked doing this for 14 years, it's still kind of intimidating. The language, the vocabulary, the sense of we've been doing this for generations in our family, and that's hard for the average sort of kid growing up in New York City public school to get into, and so we're trying to build that pipeline, and we've made a lot of progress in that regard. And we started in Bushwick, Brooklyn. We were there for 7 years. Our big problem is that we were very far away from the water, so it's hard to excite kids in the marine environment if you're not near it. So we moved in 2010 to Governor's Island, renovated an old Coast Guard facility. We now have 450 students there. We've been at Governor's Island for 6 years, and we now have graduates going on to places like SUNY Maritime, which for us, that's sort of our ideal. It's a pretty simple thing to lay out for what we're trying to do. We'd like to be sending 100 graduates a year to SUNY Maritime, Kings Point, Coast Guard, and the places that train the workforce for this industry. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So similar to Murray, my school, it's only 4 years old, so it's a very new school. Murray, I believe your school's 14 years old? I believe, right. So our school, it was started 4 years ago to feed the need of preparing students for careers and college majors in supply chain management and logistic technology. So we're still developing our programs and really working with industry and partners to help us to figure out and kind of finalize what should be in a curriculum and what we need to be preparing our students for fields in supply chain management and engineering. We're located in East Harlem. And we work with several companies right now. We work with Port Authority, EDC, Department of Transportation, helping prepare our students again for either a path to go into a college major and be really successful and get that step ahead, or pipeline straight into a career filler apprenticeship program. So things that not all students may go to college, but really helping 100% of our students really succeed. And the students that we do work with are low income and underprivileged students. So it's really students who need that extra step up and help. So that's.
Good afternoon, everybody. SUNY Maritime College, for those who don't know where it's located, if you drive across the Throgs Neck Bridge from Bronx to Queens, look down, you'll see us underneath the bridge. There's a lot of jokes we can say about that, but we won't. Our current enrollment right now stands at 1,800 students, and actually that's our max enrollment. We have no further room to grow. And increased demand, strong demand for students to want to come to the school has resulted in a dramatic increase in the quality of the students coming to the college. We are currently the most selective of the 6 state maritime academies in the United States as far as the percentage of students we actually accept to the school. We have a 2-year limited license program. We have 4-year licensed and non-licensed programs in electrical engineering, facilities engineering, mechanical engineering, marine engineering, naval architecture, marine environmental sciences, maritime studies, and finally marine transportation, marine operations. We also have 2 graduate level programs that are also licensed and non-licensed programs in international transportation management and maritime studies. All of our programs, I think this is true for all 3 of us up here, all of our programs have a strong focus on hands-on applied learning outside the classroom. And that really becomes very attractive to students who really are interested in that style of learning. And then finally, I'd like to mention that, for those of you not aware, that these programs of the State Maritime Academies of the United States are rather unique internationally. Outside the United States, if you want to get your license, you'll go to a school for 2 to 3 years, and you'll come out with your license, but only with your license. In the United States, at the 6 state maritime academies, as well as at Kings Point, you'll come out with your license and you'll come out with an important academic credential. You'll come out with an academic degree. And that is unique internationally, and I really think it's one of the strengths of the program we have in the United States to train our future mariners.
So the Port Authority really, I guess about 4 years ago, started to look back and say, what is it that we think is going to be needed over the next 40 years in terms of the maritime industry? And one of the things that we recognized was we needed to do a better job of building relationships between those academic institutions that were here and those entities in the maritime business, whether they were actually on the water side or the land side, that might be looking for employees in the future. So I want to talk to all of you now about what it is that you think about being located in New York City that's exciting to you, or why it is that you think that being located here is so important.
Go down the line?
Whoever would like to start.
I mean, I every day love working in New York City. We all know it's kind of a hard place to live, I think, but it's such a great place to work because I love the competition, I love the diversity, and I think from Harbor School's perspective, the potential is so immense of the work that we could do. If we look at the possibility of trying to train young people and the average young person in New York City for these careers, there's so much more work to do. If we think about the 600 miles of shoreline, which so little of it is still activated for maritime operations, and so much of it is turning into just sort of residential bulkheaded waterfront, I think that there's so much opportunity for developing a stronger maritime presence in New York City. And I think that's thrilling. One thing that we've done that I'm really excited about is that we have had a problem when we got to Governor's Island, and we knew this would happen, but then we had left the community of Bushwick that we were designed to serve and that we were serving. And what that meant is that we started our class, and the kids who started coming to Harbor School began to reflect that demographic we were aiming to serve less and less. And so one thing that we've worked with the city to do, I'm really happy to announce it actually today, that New York City has agreed to build 2 new feeder harbor schools, one on the Brooklyn waterfront, either in Red Hook or Sunset Park, and one on the Staten Island waterfront. And that means that these will be middle schools that will be 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who go directly to harbor school, and then hopefully into these maritime academies. And for us, it's just another really important part building that pipeline. So for me, the potential for the work to be done makes me excited to get up every day and keep doing this work.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The potential that you have in New York City, all the different companies that our students can be placed at, the connections to professionals, that really allow students, and most of our students we serve are from Harlem or the South Bronx, to really be introduced to different career paths, to different environments, and just inspire them to do really great things. And whether that be go straight to college or go right into the workforce, there really is so much culture and diversity in New York, as well as businesses. So it's really a great place for education, as well as helping train our students to prepare them for the workforce, because they have that opportunity to actually study what they're studying in school and actually go to an organization or a job and practice that, which is really important, the internship part and hands-on and real-world applicable stuff. It's not just theoretically or teaching in a classroom, it's actually being able to walk outside, take the train, go by the water, and kind of really explore what you're learning.
I'm excited because New York City gives me a competitive edge over all my other state maritime academy competitors, and we do compete with the other state maritime academies, to make no bones about that. But when you look at the location that we enjoy compared to the other ones, I mean, they're in Massachusetts, they're in Maine, they're in Texas, they're in the Great Lakes, they're in California. We're the only state maritime academy that has the benefit of location that we have that gives us access to all aspects of the maritime industry, both ashore and afloat. So, you know, we're the only one that have access to banking, insurance underwriting, brokering, chartering, port and terminal operations. We're the only one that has access to all aspects of the maritime industry. In addition, we often talk about the maritime industry as being a global industry. Well, guess what? Here in New York City, we have exposure to that legitimate global maritime industry. We don't have to look any further than New York City to appreciate how global this industry really is. And so what that allows us to do then is to partner with industry, to make sure our programs are relevant to the industry today and relevant to the industry of the future. And also it gives our students, again, those opportunities for applied learning opportunities outside the classroom, especially through internships. So this location and the access that we have to this global maritime industry makes New York City a very special place to be educating the future maritime workforce.
And now the flip side of that is, what are the challenges that you see that are unique to being in the New York area? And Michael, I'll start with you.
Oh, gee, thanks. I think my biggest challenge, I'm going to talk about a specific location, and I'll talk about challenges in general. I think my biggest challenge with New York City is, frankly, is we are a very small fish in a very big pond. You know, we are such a hidden gem. When people find out about us, like, well, you know, I get tired of students and parents telling me that they stumbled across Maritime College, or they just kind of found it by accident. So our biggest challenge in this big market is, how do you get the word out that we're here, what we, you know, and the exciting careers that we can provide our students and the employability that we provide our students? How do you get that message out in such a big market? Our other challenges, I think, though, in general are, you know, just keeping pace with the rapid change in the industry. This industry is changing rapidly, and the rate of change is increasing. So how do we keep up with that to make sure our programs are relevant, again, to the industry today and the industry of the future? In addition, the licensing requirements, both domestic and internationally, the licensing requirements are constantly increasing. And what that puts pressure on our students is, how do you get a degree in 4 years? We have all these additional requirements on top of it for a license, but then we're being pressured by, say, the state and by our accrediting bodies. You know, why does it take 5 or 6 years to get a degree from Maritime College in this kind of environment? And then finally, applied learning is expensive. It's flat out expensive. We operate a 565-foot train vessel for 90 days every summer. That's expensive. We have 20 simulators to operate. Those are expensive to maintain and to keep the technology current. That's very expensive. And then finally, all our hands-on engineering labs. These are all very expensive things to maintain and keep up to date. And so I'd say, you know, those are my general challenges, in addition to the challenge of being located in New York City.
Yeah, similar challenges to a school. As a new school, this is our 4th year, kind of getting the word out and basically what the school is all about, and just getting partners to be invested in the school as well. The curriculum development is also really important, which is why reaching out for partners are really important in building, because they actually give us the information to basically the skills or the programs that the students should be learning. So for instance, the past summer, a few of the students did internships at Department of Transportation, and they did a project using the software Visio, which was not taught in school. So that's now getting that information that next year for my upcoming curriculum, I'm going to make sure that I incorporate that software so they're better prepared for that internship. So communicating the type of skills and the needs for industry so we can better prepare our students. So exactly what are the soft skills that are needed, the hard skills, the type of, if they're going into an engineering firm, should they know AutoCAD or SolidWorks? Is it more different types of materials or loads? So concrete, yeah. And then also the applied learning part is also difficult too as far as resources. So we want to train our students how to drive a forklift, but that gets really expensive, and then it's where to store it. So all these little things where we want to train our students, but it's figuring out storage or even equipment cost as well, always gets a little bit difficult, at least for our school.
Yeah, I think a lot of the same ones. I mean, definitely, I think our biggest challenge is that we're a school of 450 students, and to try and offer 6 career and technical education programs in a school that's small. We were naive when we set out to create those programs because we didn't think we had any chance to get all 6 approved by the state. We got them approved, and each one took practically a decade to create. And now we have to try and figure out whether or not we're going to be able to afford to create the facilities that each of those programs demands. Vessel operations, you need simulators, you need boats, you need docks. For marine systems technology, one of the main skills we're supposed to be teaching is welding, and everyone wants us to teach welding. We're on Governor's Island. There are 100 empty buildings, and it's our 5th year that we haven't been able to get a welding lab paid for and approved and built. And so I think we're struggling now with not just the cost, but the cost per student. And so one of the ways that we're going to address that is we're working with the city about doubling in size on Governor's Island, where we think that whether it's the pool or the waterfront or the welding or the boats, that we can drive that cost per student down a little bit. So that's one big challenge that we keep struggling with. We raise a lot, as a lot of people in this room are aware of because they've supported us a lot. We raise a lot of money, and it's too much money per student, really. We did not think that we would be plugging these holes within the Department of Education budget for so long. We thought that once our programs were approved by the state, we had all this industry support, we had new buildings on Governor's Island. We thought that the city was going to step up their amount of funding per student to support these programs. That hadn't happened. And so there's a question of whether or not the city wants us to be training students in these programs because they haven't stepped up to help us fund them. So we continually have to raise private money for that. And so that's unsustainable. So there's a scale cost per student. I don't know how long I should go on. The last thing I'll say is just the similar problems that I think everyone in this room who operates in New York Harbor understands and can empathize with us. We've been on Governor's Island for 6 years. The city built a $34 million facility. We raised $5 million for a private marine science and technology center. We still in year 6 don't have a lease to use our waterfront. So we're on the waterfront, there's docks there, we have tons of money to build out the docks, but the city doesn't know how to sign a lease with itself for the Department of Education students to use the water. So the single most important element of what we've tried to do for 14 years remains an unsolved problem because there's so many different entities that are trying to figure out how to get that done. And so that's something that has been frustrating, and that we hope that once we can get past that, that's a big challenge.
And as a follow-up to that, one of the things that I would say is, sitting here with my government hat on, one of the things that we try very much to do with the Port Authority is to make sure that we serve as the conduit for these important educational institutions to go back and say, look, there is something that we need, but there's also assistance that's needed from industry. It's one thing if the Port Authority goes to the mayor's office or the governor's office and says, we have a great program, we think it would educate a lot of kids. It's something entirely different when a company, a Fortune 500 company, shows up and says, we've got these jobs and we know that you've got kids that can fill them and we need you to make that step to fill that gap. So, one of the things that we'd really like to maybe talk about a little is what specifically are the kinds of things that you'd like to see industry do?
We're all going to say.
Twinkle's turn to go.
I'll start with that.
I got a list.
So developing a school and working with partners, there's different levels of partnership commitment that we do have. So we have partners who were on our advisory board who every day send me emails of new opportunities, who will take 2 interns every term, who will come to school, do guest speaking, be part of career day, invite kids over for job shadows. And then there are some partners who were willing to offer financial support or, again, just take a kid under their wing for mentorship, which is really important for a lot of our students. So as a partner in kind of industry, just time, I guess, is the #1 thing. Just, even if it's once a month or once every 2 months to visit a school and talk to a young student about their future career and dreams and help inspire them. Or be a part of the school with curriculum building and say, hey, we have a huge gap of workers who have logistical, who can think logistically. So really open communication of working with the schools, and not just my school, but any CTE school, to say, like, this is what we need in our workforce and help fill that skills gap, because you will have a higher retention rate. I have 8 students who did a internship at Department of Transportation, and 3 of them are 100% they want to work for Department of Transportation. I don't know any 17-year-old who thought their dream job was to work for Department of Transportation, but now you have students who will go to college, but when they're ready, their first place that they're going to look for a place of employment will be Department of Transportation. So it's about making a connection where when the students are ready to enter the workforce, whether it be right after high school or after their 4-year degree, that they're going to think about that company because they had that relationship. So I think just time and communicating.
I think we're all going to say ditto. But I think in general, I think what we need from industry is, investment. But investment in a very broad sense. Investment, as Twinkle said, of just being a partner in a conversation and a dialogue. Being a partner in helping us to make sure that, our programs are relevant, not just for today, but more importantly, relevant for the future. So a partner who participates, I would say, in the school in forms of, interacting with our faculty, interacting with our students, telling our students your story of your career in the industry, inspiring students to want to, follow that pathway. So I just say, we would like industry to really come alongside us as a real partner in developing the future workforce. We cannot do this alone. We really absolutely need industry to come alongside with us and partner with us in order to make sure we're developing the right workforce for the industry of the future.
I think for us, one of the main ways that we've engaged with industry has been through our internship program. Every Harbor School student in the spring of their senior year has to do an internship if they want to graduate with a career and technical education endorsement on their diploma. And so most of the students spend, I think it's 54 hours in the spring doing an internship at various industry partners. And I think that's the best way that it's sort of a reality check for industry, because they think it'd be great to hire these super skilled, young, excited Harbor School kids. They're still 17-year-old public school teenagers. And so I think it's a little bit of a reality check about what to expect, but it's also the most powerful way for young people to get excited about this industry is to spend time with professionals over a long period of time. And so I know Robin has been an amazing host to a bunch of Harbor School and I think Global Commerce interns. And that takes, it's not easy. I've had interns from Harbor School and it's a pain. But it's so, if we can't figure out how to get industry to take the time to make that investment, then there's going to continue to be the shortage of how do we not have enough young mariners and enough young kids interested in the maritime industry. So I think the internship model is a pretty good one because it's developed specifically for these kinds of purposes, and it's pretty rigorous standards to make sure that it works for both the industry host site as well as the school and the student, of course.
So just to follow up on that, I'd like to just say, the Port Authority every summer, we take 2 high school interns in our port department. We take 5 to 8, depending upon budgets and timing, college interns. So I'd like to challenge each of you in the room to make a space for an intern. It's not an impossible thing. It just requires a little bit of forethought. And with that, I'd like to turn it over for questions if anyone has.
For a while, Harbor School was like maybe 60% men and 40% female, but now that's gotten down to where I think this year we're at like 53% male. So pretty close to being an even split there. And that's evenly split throughout those 6 CTE programs. So you have in the Marine Systems Technology of young women welding, and you have young women driving boats and scuba diving. I'm really excited that a young graduate from Harbor School, his name is Juana Garcia, was the first female captain of New York Water Taxi. And that was a big sort of symbolic for her, as well as I think just for the idea of, girls can drive boats. And I think that she's come back and talked to our students. And so I think those kind of success stories are really powerful. But we're seeing, the other thing we've done, and this is actually maybe a hint for admissions, we prioritize every girl who ranks Harbor School. You can give a little priority. And so we prioritize every English as second language student and every female, because we'd like to have them sort of disproportionately represented in our school.
Yeah, we have a similar demographic, around 55% girls. And our 2 pathways with business and engineering, it allows a lot of females to get into the business field and understand it. We also have the engineering pathway. So a lot of girls surprisingly decide to go into the engineering pathway. We also have a robotics team in our school. So we try to do a lot of enrichment and after-school projects. Surprisingly, last year for robotics, we had more girls on the team than guys building robots and doing automation. So we try to, I think part of it too is the educators that we have. I'm one of the teachers at the school, and I think my passion, when it leaks into the classroom and what I'm talking about, helps to get the other students excited as well. So I think getting more girls into the industry, I think that's a matter of the teachers that are working with them and other staff, as well as industry professionals. I'm lucky to have Robin, who can come to the school and talk. So I think having more females in industry that are willing to work with the schools will help with that as well, and just those guest lectures. So, yeah.
So I think, Carlene, there's over 40 marine and maritime high schools in this country. Most of them are in port cities, most of them are in urban settings, and I've visited many of them, and it's the same story. These maritime and marine high schools are gender neutral. It's 50-50. Some actually have more women than men in them. And so I think on that level, we're doing great. My school, we've been 10% female since we first admitted females, and we've been stuck at 10% female, and I've made it I'll say it publicly. I said we will be 20% female in 5 years. By hook or crook, we'll be 20% female in 5 years. And so I think by building intentional pathways to these schools that already have young women interested in the industry, I think we need to be intentional in building pathways and partnerships with these schools. I think that will help. The other thing we did this past year is I put my wife in charge. I think my wife's in charge. She is my female outreach coordinator, and what she did was she partnered one of our female alums. Every female applicant to Maritime College this year had a female alum assigned to her, and all we asked the female alums, tell them your story. Tell me your story about your experience at Maritime College. Tell me your story about your experiences in the industry. Just by doing that, this year's freshman class, we went from 10% female to 15% female in the freshman class in 1 year, 5% jump in 1 year. So, we will continue to be intentional in building important partnerships with, I think we are the right feeder schools, and we'll continue to be intentional of, reaching out to them and having a female reach out to them and just tell them their story.
Okay, we don't have any more time for questions. Well, thank you so much.
Any more questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.